During World War II, one man's lifeless body was placed at the head of his unit, leading his men into battle for one last time. His body was then placed on the rubble of a French church, draped in the stars and stripes. So who was this man and why was he so revered? Well, part of that story is the murderous Normandy countryside known as the bocage. So join me as I take you to the heart of the hell in the hedgerows. Welcome back, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to St. Lo, the important crossroads town south of the Normandy landing beaches. The Allies had secured a lodgment, but they needed to project their numerical advantage inland, that numerical advantage of manpower and materiel. The issue is that the enemy that they would face was far more formidable and better equipped than the largely static and conscripted divisions on the beaches. It would take 43 days to advance some 12 miles to St. Lo. They would also have to fight through some murderous terrain, perfect for the defender, a crisscross of ancient field systems and thick hedges. I love this video as it could be troops in the jungle, but believe it or not, this is Normandy. So even though it's winter and the trees are all bare and they've been cut back, this is a really good example of Normandy bocage. You can just see how high up the hedgerows are, how thick and almost circular it would be with the canopy if the trees had grown and if we came back here in the summer. As I said, I'm in the winter, but just look at this. See the size of those hedgerows. One way to defeat the hedges was to form ploughs on the front of the armoured vehicles capable of penetrating this mass of roots. And here you can see examples of that ingenious invention. Right, the reason I brought you here is because this cemetery is right in the middle of all of the crossfire from the Germans firing at the Americans and the Americans firing at the Germans. I'm going to show you some of the damage that is on these graves today. Whenever you come to Normandy, have a look at the cemeteries, go into the churchyards and see if there's any damage that you can find, because if it's contemporary to World War II, chances are there's going to be some damage there. Now the damage on most of these graves is both from the north and the south, because the Germans were in the south of the area trying to stop the Americans from pushing south, and the Americans were in the north, obviously heading down towards St. Lo. So let's see if we can find some damage on these headstones. Look here, we've got damage on the reverse of it and also on the front. Got big chunks taken out of it. To shatter the German grip on Normandy, General Omar Bradley launched Operation Cobra. The plan was to carpet bomb a narrow sector of the front, then unleash armoured divisions through that gap. On July 24th, hundreds of B-17s and B-24s thundered overhead, but their formations ran parallel to the front line instead of perpendicular at right angles, and this was a fatal mistake. In the confusion, the bomb bays of the 3,000 bombers opened too early. American soldiers on the ground looked up in horror as the sky rained down explosives onto their own positions. A sergeant in the 30th Infantry Division recalls, "It was like the world was ending. You couldn't tell where the German shells stopped and our bombs began. Men were blown to pieces in their foxholes, and the ground shook like an earthquake." Despite the carnage, Cobra went ahead and would provide the breakout of Normandy the Allies so desperately needed. But it wasn't this action that killed our mystery soldier. So what people don't necessarily realize is that a large part of being a YouTube video creator is the research and copywriting required. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And if there's a way to help me record notes, to help me write scripts more efficiently, and to save time to do the things I love, like traveling Europe and the rest of the world to film content, then I'm all for it. This video is sponsored by Plord, trusted by 1 million plus users in over 170 countries. Plord genuinely might be one of the most useful products I've encountered for the purposes of creating video content. And what's more, I can see that this is a perfect addition to your inventory as a leader or as an executive. Plord is activated with one simple press of this button. It quite literally takes notes for you, cancelling out noise and enhancing human speech so that you can focus on the work. Not only that, but it identifies words from different participants and it understands 112 languages and accents. The summarize function helps to present your data with custom templates for tailored use cases so that when I have to go back and actually find the information that I need, it is super easy. Plord comes with Ask AI, a chat GPT-like function that acts as your personal secretary and is fully compliant with US and EU privacy and data laws. Plord keeps your data safe with end-to-end encryption and meets top global privacy standards like SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA, and EN 18031. If you're heading to college or you're in a high-tempo appointment with lots of competing demands on your time, you can amplify your intelligence with this device. Be sure to visit the link in the video description below. The mystery soldier became known as the Major of St. Lo, but today we know him as 36-year-old Major Thomas Howie of Abbeville, South Carolina. He made a promise to his men that he would be the first into St. Lo. So let's go into St. Lo and look at the city, which was practically destroyed during World War II, earning the nickname the Capital of Ruins. The church, as you can see, was really badly damaged during World War II, and rather than repair it to its original construction, like they did many other places in Normandy, you can see that they've done this sort of repair, I guess you could call it, where half of it is like relatively modern and the other half is the original. So it's quite strange, but of course the Allies carpet bombed, for want of a better phrase, St. Lo. And they actually dropped leaflets in St. Lo saying that that was what they wanted to do. They were going to bomb the city because it is a citadel. But the wind blew the leaflets away, and so many people weren't actually warned about the impending bombing. And many people died, which is a shame. So St. Lo is a strategic crossroad. The city suffered 2 large attacks during the Battle for Normandy. The first one was on D-Day, when American bombers killed almost 800 civilians in the city. The next attack occurred on the 17th of June, resulting in up to 90 to 95% of the city being destroyed. Now, this is allegedly an inert German artillery shell embedded in the wall, and you can see that around it actually it's been cemented to prevent it from even being taken. But it looks like around about a 155mm, and I'm sure someone in the comments will be able to correct me. We just look at all of this damage to the wall. It's actually probably caused by Allied bombing. This is probably all shrapnel damage. I've seen this before where people have said it's from machine gun fire or whatever, but I don't think it is. I think this is all I think this is all shrapnel damage. In many ways, we are so lucky this church is still standing when you look at the pictures of the damage that it sustained. So I need to explain the story of Major Thomas Howie. As a young man growing up in South Carolina, Howie showed many of the qualities that made him one of the nation's finest young officers during World War II. Thomas Howie was born in Abbeville, South Carolina on April 12, 1908. He graduated from high school in 1925 and the Citadel in 1929. He seemed to excel in almost any endeavor that he pursued. In college, he played football and he boxed, and he also played shortstop on the baseball team. But when the Guards' 116th Infantry Regiment was called into active duty on 1940, he went in as a second lieutenant. Howie became one of its most beloved officers. Handsome, friendly, and cheerful, he always had time for his fellow soldiers, especially the enlisted men whom he always believed were the division's heart and their strength. It was in July that Major Howie took over command of the 116th 3rd Battalion. The unit had suffered staggering losses up until that point, and it was clearly under strength. Its men were exhausted and morale was low. On July the 16th, Colonel Charles Canham ordered Howie's battalion to relieve the decimated 1st Battalion near Le Madeleine. They were battered, short on supplies, and facing constant artillery fire, yet Howie gave his men that quiet confidence. According to one officer, as he left the headquarters that night, Howie shouted to Canham, "I'll see you in St. Lo." And this was not deemed to be bravado, it was a promise. A few moments later, just after he had issued his orders for the attack, the Germans laid down a massive mortar barrage around the battalion's CP. Major Howie, with his usual disregard for his own safety, paused briefly to see that his men had taken shelter. At that moment, a mortar fragment hit him in the back and pierced his lung. He shouted, "My God, I'm hit," and Captain William Punteney caught Howie as he fell and shouted for a medic. But it was of course too late. Within minutes, Major Howie was dead, blood streaming from his mouth. But his men refused to leave him behind. When St. Lo finally fell, they carried him with them. They carried him at the front of the unit. This is where Major Howie's body was placed, right outside this door, but there was a huge pile of rubble at the time, obviously rubble from the damaged building, and it was basically going from the floor up to about halfway up the building, and it was on that rubble that they placed his body and covered it in a flag. And it says here, on the 18th of July 1944, this is where they placed the body of Major Howie. At the time, no one knew his name because of censorship and all those other sorts of things that were going on at the time. And so he was just called the Major of St. Lo. We now know today that it was Major Howie. In death, his comrades had won for the Major the last goal of his life. He was the first into St. Lo. I really hope you've enjoyed this video all about Major Howie, the Major of St. Lo. Hopefully it's given an insight into what occurred on the attack into St. Lo, but also how the attack onto St. Lo enabled the breakout from Normandy, which ultimately led to the Allies securing rapid success and advance throughout Normandy. Please give this video a like and leave a comment, as it helps to show YouTube that this video is worth sharing to other viewers. You can support the channel by purchasing mugs and t-shirts from the link in the video description. And the t-shirts are far more popular than I expected them to be, and we've now got a new stock on the shelves, so go ahead and get yourself one. That's all from me. Until next time.
Many men